Here are the topics that will be covered in the Congress revision videos. This video will focus on Congress in its oversight role. Now that we understand the legislative process, let's look at the second important function of Congress, oversight and scrutiny. Write down what you think the definitions of oversight and scrutiny are. Scrutiny is the close and careful examination or the study and close observation or surveillance. Oversight is the watchful care or management, supervision and management by overseeing the performance or operation of a person or group. In terms of the US Congress, oversight means the congressional review and investigation of the activities of the executive branch of government. The Constitution does not explicitly grant Congress oversight responsibility. Over time, it has become an implied power. Members of Congress have to know what is going on in order to make laws, and see how these laws that they have previously passed are working so that they can either amend them or not. To carry out oversight, Congress has given itself a number of significant powers in addition to the existing checks and balances which exist within the Constitution. Some of the powers that Congress has given itself are the ability to subpoena documents and testimony, hold individuals in contempt if they fail to comply with Congress's demands for information, and to make it illegal to lie to Congress. Congressional oversight also includes the Senate's power of confirmation of numerous presidential nominations, as well as its power to ratify treaties. When we were looking at the congressional committees, we have touched briefly on oversight, and it is during this committee stage that the function of oversight takes place. The reason for this is fundamental: the absence of the executive branch from the chambers of Congress. It is only in the committee rooms that members of the executive branch can be questioned. And because we have seen that standing committees are permanent policy specialists, they wield a considerable amount of clout. This table gives you some examples of recent committee oversight hearings. However, it is important to consider that activity is not the same as achievement. Can you remember the checks on the executive by the legislative? Let's go through them now. The legislative branch can check the executive by amend, delay, reject legislation, override the president's veto, power of the purse, declare war, ratify treaties only in the Senate, investigation, impeachment, trial, conviction, and removal of office. Here are some examples of oversight in action in regard to checks and balances. For amend, delay, and reject legislation, we have the Rebuild American Jobs Act, which was filibustered in the Senate on the 3rd of the 11th, 2011. Overriding president's vetoes, you could use the George W. Bush example of Medicare improvements for Patients and Providers Act. Power of the purse, there's the House Resolution 292. The power to declare war, you could look at the Iraq War, which followed straight after the War Powers Resolution. You could look at the involvement of American troops in Libya, which was very controversial, or you can look at the example of the last time America officially declared war with Congress, which was in 1941, and that was after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in World War II. The Congress also has the power to ratify treaties, however this only belongs to the Senate. The example that you can use for this is the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. The power of investigation, you could look at the Sondra Loan investigation of 2011. And finally, the final check that Congress has is impeachment, trial, conviction, and removal from office. And the best example for this is the impeachment of Bill Clinton in 1998. A question that often comes up is whether congressional oversight is effective. Does Congress act as a watchdog or as a lapdog? There is quite a bit of agreement and evidence to support the theory that congressional oversight only really works when the Congress is not controlled by the President's party. Example A in this argument is the fact that all modern-day examples of the Senate rejects a presidential nomination, whether they are executive or judicial. This always happens when the Senate is controlled by the opposite party. It was a Democrat Senate in 1987 which rejected Republican President Ronald Reagan's nomination of Robert Bork to the Supreme Court. The same was true in 1989 with the rejection of George H.W. Bush's nomination of John Tower to be Secretary of Defense. Example B of oversight not really working would be the relationship of Congress and George W. Bush. During the first 6 years in office, Bush's Republican Party controlled both houses, but during a brief period in 2001 to 2002, the Democrats controlled the Senate, though only through one vote. and during much of this period it coincided with the president's sky-high approval ratings following 9/11. During these years, congressional oversight was light and often non-existent. Democrat Congressman Steinheuer pointed out that oversight activity in this period was low, even by the standards of other periods of united government. But all this changed in 2006 when the Republicans lost both houses. In fact, most Republicans admitted that had they done a better job of oversight when they held the majority, they might not have been punished so severely by voters. The president then found himself in the firing line of some committee chairs. House Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Tom Lantos said, "We are not a plotted plant watching the administration function."